Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Upstate International's Cultural Sensation Experience, exploring the flavors of Eastern Mediterranean food. We are so glad you're joining us this afternoon. You may not know a lot about the Levant region, and I wanted to share with you just a little bit about it. This is a very historic area of the world. It includes Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine, Israel, and Syria. And its cultures flow from the Fertile Crescent between the Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean. We are so glad that our chef today, Miss Salley Gillespie from Plate 108, has a great knowledge base and has joined us to share her experience in cooking this food. Salley is a graduate of Clemson University and the Culinary Institute of America. During her years as chef, she has worked for several James Beard Award and Michelin star restaurants spanning from Napa Valley to Burlington, Vermont. Salley has managed restaurants, hotels, and taught collegiate-level culinary courses. Her experiences, which we're all benefiting from today, are in all areas of hospitality and have pushed her to educate other people, while she continues to learn about these different culturals and their fabulous cuisines. Joining us also is Ms. Spencer Kimbrell. Spencer is the executive chef at Plate 108. And right before we got started just now, we were talking about the very different opportunities to experience international food right there at Plate 108. So I would encourage everyone to go out and dine with them. Today, I'm going to go ahead and ask that all of you leave your audio and video off and type in your questions via our chat function. Our moderator will share them with Salley. Many of you probably already have the recipes we emailed in advance, so you can follow along in your own kitchen. But don't hesitate to type in your questions, and following this event, it will be recorded, so you can go back to it on our YouTube channel at Upstate International to review what you've learned. We're about to get started. One last plug for Upstate International. I hope you'll look forward to more of these opportunities coming up shortly with us, as well as our dynamic speaker series, The Global Supply Chain. So I'm going to hand it over right now to Spencer and Salley. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. I'm just going to spotlight this video as well as, okay. So you should be able to see my face, and we also have a camera on my cutting board and my pan. So you'll be able to see everything I'm doing. Welcome. We are going to do Eastern Mediterranean cuisine today. I'm actually classically trained in French techniques, but for several years I had the great opportunity to work for a restaurant called Honey Road in Burlington, Vermont. Shout out to Chef Kara, she's amazing. And learn about this cuisine, and I just fell in love with it. French cooking tends to have a lot of butter, a lot of salt, a lot of cream. When you think about the Eastern Mediterranean, like Turkey, Lebanon, and Syria, you think about the Ottoman Empire and that spice road where all of those unique spices came through, and that they use a lot of that in their cooking. So you'll see more olive oil, you'll see more spices for flavor, less salt, and lots of fresh herbs, lots of fresh vegetables, and yogurts. So it is a bit healthier, but there's so much flavor when you learn to use spice, which is something I really appreciated learning. So we're going to start off today. We're going to make some mezes. Mezes are typically what you would find if you go to an Eastern Mediterranean restaurant. They're small plates that are meant to be shared family style with the whole table. It's not uncommon to sit down at a restaurant and just have them bring plates and plates and fill your table up. So it's overwhelming, but there's a lot of great food, and it's just small bites that you can eat as much as you want of. So we're going to start with pita bread. I'm just going to turn you a little bit, and I'm going to make this today in a stand mixer with a hook attachment. You can also do it by hand. The recipe I sent is by hand, but this just shows you a different method if you have a KitchenAid mixer. I'm going to start with 1 cup of lukewarm water, room temperature, but not cold, and definitely not hot because hot will kill the yeast. I have 2 tablespoons of active dry yeast. I'm going to add that, as well as a half of a teaspoon of sugar, and that's going to feed that yeast and help it grow. So I'm going to start that and let it mix for just a minute or so, and it will just dissolve all of that yeast into the water. And once it dissolved, you'll see all of the little specks, the little granules of yeast are no longer there. And that's just gonna help it evenly distribute throughout the dough. Just a minute or so. So it's pretty much dissolved. I'm gonna bring it around so you can see. So if you see right here, it's just kind of murky and it's nice and dissolved. So from there, we are going to add, I have 1/4 cup of wheat flour, and that's just to give it a nutty flavor. Wheat flour is just the wheat germ, the endosperm, and the bran have been milled with the flour, and it gives it like a richer flavor. It also gives it more fiber, makes it a little more hearty. And then a 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. All-purpose flour is good for bread making because it does have about 10 to 12% proteins, and that's also called the glutens. Glutens make up about 75 to 85% of the proteins in flour and wheat. That gives it elastic texture, it helps it form shape, and it gives it that nice chewiness that you want when you eat bread. So I'm just gonna add this into the mixer and let it mix for a few minutes. It will kind of look shaggy. If you're doing this by hand, this is just to incorporate some of the flour at first before we add the rest of our flour, our oil, and our salt. It's just trying to evenly distribute that yeast throughout. If you have a spatula, you can go through and just kind of mix it in. Okay, so I just kind of incorporated that little bit. Now I'm going to add the rest of our flour. This is about 2 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour. Okay, at this time, I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And 1 teaspoon of kosher salt. So I'm just going to let this go until the bread forms together into a dough, and I'll show you when it gets there. We'll let it knead together. It's going to form into a dough. We will let it rest for about 15 minutes, and then I'll come back and we're going to knead it again for 2 minutes, let it rest, 2 more minutes, and then we should be able to cover it, let it rise for an hour. I do have some already made, so we're not going to have to wait for an hour. So it's forming a nice ball. You just want it to come completely together. All that liquid's absorbed. And the kneading process, using a hook or using your hand, just helps develop that gluten. The gluten is just going to make it nice and chewy. If you think about using cake flour has a lower protein content or lower gluten content, so it makes the cake more fluffy. It makes the cake less chewy, less elastic, like a bread dough. That's why most breads either use an all-purpose flour or bread flour or high gluten flour, which are higher in proteins. So it's just pulling together, and you'll see that it pulls all of the flour and the dough from the sides of the mixer, and that's pretty much what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, so all right, so it's all pulled together. There we go. And it's just a nice dough ball. We're going to leave it in the mixer and let it sit for 15 minutes. It will rise just a little bit during that time, and then we'll go back and knead it a bit more before letting it rise for now. Okay, so while we're waiting on the bread to rest, the dough to rest, we're gonna start on our base for our dolmas. Dolma actually means, sarma means wrap. So basically we're making a sarma. At our restaurant, we called them dolma. Dolma are typically stuffed. They are usually vegetarian and they're usually served cold. So technically this is a sarma. It is a grape leaf that you wrap around a filling. So we're gonna make the filling right now. Today we're using a ground lamb filling with rice. This is just the sofrito base. So it is our onions, peppers, and some of our spices. I'm going to start by pouring some olive oil into the pan. A tablespoon and a half. And let that heat. You'll notice it'll get shimmery and more free-flowing when it's come to temperature. So we're just going to use, I have a small diced onion, just a yellow onion. And then I have roasted red peppers that I have also small diced. There's a lot of roasted red peppers in Eastern Mediterranean cuisine. They provide sweetness. A lot of times they use piquillo peppers. A piquillo pepper is similar to a red pepper, our American roasted red peppers. They do have a slightly bit more of heat than you would get from an American pepper, but you can absolutely substitute roasted red bell peppers. And then we're going to use, let's see how we're doing, it's almost there. We're going to use some allspice, some cumin. I have red pepper paste, and this is Maraş. It's from Maraş in Turkey. It is also called Aleppo, which you can get in Syria. But it's the same thing. Yes.
I've seen jarred sofrito in stores that do the same thing. I think it was in the Latin American food section.
It's probably a Latin. If you find a jarred sofrito in a store, you'd probably find it in the Latin American or Caribbean section. They use that in a lot of their dishes as well. Sort of similar, but they definitely don't use roasted red peppers in theirs. And I think the spices differ. So it wouldn't be ideal for this recipe, but it is a base, so you can use it for sauces or different recipes in that type of cuisine. So we're just going to sweat our onion, just translucent. You don't want it to be, you don't want it to brown. You just want it to kind of become translucent and cooked through. most of the recipes I'm making today, you can find most of these ingredients locally. I actually found everything locally except for the marash, which I just had in my cabinet because I use it often. But you can find this if you find like a specialty grocery store, like a Middle Eastern grocery store, possibly somewhere like Whole Foods that has a lot of unique and specialty items. If not, you can always order it online. One of my favorite spice providers online is Levant. It's L-A, first word L-A, and then Voite, V-O-I-T-E. He's fantastic. I've actually gotten to meet him and do a dinner with him in Vermont, but he gets all of his spices from Lebanon and imports them all into New York, and he has an incredible business. He provides spices for lots of the big chefs in New York, and they're of fantastic quality. He also has some spice blends as well that are really, really useful in the kitchen. So it's sweat a little bit, and I'm going to add our red peppers. We just want to warm them through and kind of get this all mixed together. Okay. So now, I'm gonna add my spices. I'm gonna add the red pepper paste. Incorporate that. Right, I have a teaspoon of allspice. I have my marash Aleppo pepper and some ground cumin. These are typical spices you see in a lot of the Eastern Mediterranean. You'll see allspice, cumin, coriander, cinnamon, paprika. Those are very typical spices for this region. All right. And then I'm just going to add some kosher salt, just a pinch. And now the onions are cooked. I'm just trying to let those spices toast up a little bit so they'll release that flavor.
Are most of the spices grown in that region?
Yes. I believe most of in the Mediterranean, a lot of the ingredients that they use are because they're local and that's what they have. So, you know, like Greece has dill and things like that that they use in a lot of their recipes. And, you know, Lebanon, they're spicy as pepper. They don't have like marash or Aleppo, but they use like black pepper and consider that to be spicy. Whereas like Turkey, we have marash, and Syria has marash, which are a little bit spicier. So it's kind of what they are accustomed to using because it's what's found locally. Okay, so I'm gonna turn this off, and we're just gonna let this cool for 3 minutes. I'm actually gonna transfer it to a bowl just so the pan has some residual heat on it, and I want it to start cooling so we can add it to our base. All right, so here we go. All right, so we have our sofrito here. It's just gonna sit and cool And then once, we're gonna go back to our bread and just knead it before we let it rise. So, put this aside. And I'll turn you towards me. So we're back on to our dough. I'm just going to turn it back on and let it knead. It's not latching, so I'm gonna hold it down. Let it knead for about 2 minutes, and then we'll let it rest for a minute or so, and then go back. And this is just working all the ingredients together and kind of making it more elastic by activating those glutens in the flour.
How do you like working on an induction stove versus gas?
I hate it. I'm not shy about that. I absolutely despise like induction stoves. Just a personal preference. I like gas. That's my go-to. That was actually, when moving here, it was my deal breaker in buying a house. I just feel like you have better control of the heat with gas. Induction is good if you have kids and you know the surface won't be as hot and you don't have an open flame, but for me, it's gas all the way. All right, so let that rest for a minute. It's looking nice and smooth. Start setting up to roll our Dahlman. Actually, let's do this first for a second. All right. So I have a towel down under my cutting board. That's just to keep it in place. Not really cutting anything right now, but it's always good to have it not slide when you're working. I have some grape leaves here. You can find them. I found these at Lowe's in a jar. I think I actually have the jar if I'm gonna lay them out. They come in a brine. Bottle looks like this. There you go. But you can find them, most grocery stores in the international section should have them. I found these at Lowe's. You can probably find them at Whole Foods. There's lots of different brands, but you just want grape leaves in brine. I personally like to lay them out on my cutting board before I start rolling. These, you want it to, so there's a side, one side has kind of like the ribs, almost veins of the leaf, and the other side is going to be more shiny. You want to have the rib side up because those are going to be rolled from the inside once it's rolled. So I'm just scanning out. And these came, I guess, clipped. There are little stems of the leaf. A lot of times those are on, they come with them on, they're a little bit longer, but these were clipped, so that was nice. But you can clip them off with a pair of scissors or a paring knife. I'm going to start my bread back and just let it go. A little longer. Okay. So for our Dahlman filling, for ceremony, I'm going to love. I have 12 ounces of ground lamb with a cup and a half of white rice. This is just short grain rice. I cooked it yesterday, let it cool. You can cook yours in a rice cooker. You can just cook it on the stove. just a short grain rice. So I have those in our bowl. I'm actually going to add, this is the zest of an orange, and this just gives it nice flavor. I'm going to add some red pepper paste, and I just got this of those as well. The juice of an orange. About half of that must be how the flavor is. 2 egg whites, and that just helps bind it together, kind of like when you're making meatball. And then this is a mixture of chopped parsley, mint, and dill, and we call that P&B in the restaurants. Any station that you work in, the restaurant I worked at had this. Every single station has it. There's a lot of herbs in this style of cooking, a lot of fresh herbs, and they're always parsley, mint, and dill. You'll see it in everything. You can top it on salads. You can put it in every dish, and it just brings out a lot of fresh flavor. I'm going to use probably all of this. About a cup's worth. I'm going to start mixing it by hand. Just getting everything incorporated. It's going to kind of look like meatloaf or meatball dough. Right. Here you go. So the dough is nice and smooth. I'll turn you up here. So I'm just going to take it out. Pull all the dough off. So you can see it's nice and smooth. And that's it. Yeah, it's worked itself into like a smooth dough. We're just going to cover it with plastic wrap, which I have over here. And just set it in a warm place for an hour to rise. I'm just going to leave it under these lights over here. They will, you don't want it to be hot. You just want it to be warm. Okay, so we'll go back to our filling for our donuts. All right, so we have our sofrito. I just popped it in the refrigerator to chill a little bit, get some of the heat off. It's okay if it's still a little warm, because we're about to use them right now. So, mix all this together. I'm actually gonna add the rest of my parsley, mint, and dill in there as well.
Got another question.
Sure.
So Poland stuffs cabbage leaves. The Mediterranean uses grape leaves. Any other stuffed leaves that come to mind?
Any other stuffed leaves?
Is it really the only?
It's the only ones I can think of.
Yeah.
Stuffed cabbage. I mean, some people stuff peppers.
Yeah.
Leaves, I don't really. I think only grape leaves and cabbage.
Those are the only.
Those are the only ones I know of. All right. So that is our filling. All right, so now I'm going to roll some dolma. So the leaves are flat. I have a little cookie scoop. This is, it's probably about a tablespoon, I would say. And you can use just a spoon, but you want about a tablespoon's worth. And just scoop it into the center of each grape leaf. And if you have a smaller leaf, put it just a little bit less. But these are all pretty large. So what I like to do is just kind of make a log out of the meat in the center. That way it's easier to wrap.
Someone says they use grape leaves in Iran too.
Yeah, I know Greece uses grape leaves as well. I think most of the countries in the Eastern Mediterranean do some sort of like sarma or dolma or stuffed grape leaf. Okay, so I like to roll it like a burrito. So you pull your sides over and you just tuck it and roll it all the way up. And you have your little point kind of laid against. Not too high. There we go. And then I'm just putting them on a sheet tray that I lightly oiled. And this takes time. You have to roll one at a time, but it's worth it in the end. And you don't have to use lamb. If you don't like lamb, you can use ground beef, ground pork. You can do vegetarian, just do more of the vegetables in there. Line them up as I go. Here's the name of the jar for whoever was asking. It's Krinos, imported grape leaves. So I will just lay out some more and we'll keep rolling a few.
Can you tell them again what went into your sofrito?
So the sofrito was, I had roasted red peppers, onion. There was allspice, cumin, Aleppo pepper, or Marash pepper. It goes by either one. Little salt. I believe that was it. Oh, yeah, that was it. Oh, a little red pepper paste.
Not much to see up close.
Okay.
Sorry, my hands are a little shaky.
And just make it into a little log, shape it, and this just helps you roll. It gives you the shape so you know what you're trying to accomplish with your roll. Just like a burrito, roll it.
Would grape leaf dolma be served as part of another meal or as the main entree?
They actually don't do entrees or appetizers at your traditional meal. What they do is meze, and that's just lots of plates, lots of small plates come to your table. So they fill your table with all kinds of small plates. So you would have dolma, you'll have pita, you could have like a fried halloumi dish, you could have salads, all kinds of fresh salads, dips, fish cooked in tahini. There's lots of tahini used in this cuisine as well. So they actually just sit and dine with lots of different items on their table. All right, we'll do one more round. Okay. So I have my oven at 475. Traditionally, dolma are steamed in a steamer, but the way I learned and the way I prefer it is actually to cook them in the oven, in a hot oven. The meat will cook on the inside, but the oils released will actually kind of crisp up the outside of the grape leaf, and it makes it really crunchy and delicious and pleasant to eat. So that's the way we're going to do it today. I've actually done it for people outside of the restaurant, and they are familiar with dolmas, and I've heard that they prefer it this way. So this is the way we're going to do it. It's really just gives it really nice flavor and crunchiness on the outside. So I have a 475-degree oven, and I'm going to put them in probably about 10 minutes, but we'll check on them. Just wash my hands really quickly. Okay. So move this out of the way. Okay, so I'm just gonna move you over to this side where we have a food processor set up. I'm gonna show you muhammara. Muhammara is a Syrian dip. It's one of my favorites. So you think of hummus, hummus is absolutely around Usually this is a dip, they'll put a dip of hummus, a dip of labneh, which is a thick strained yogurt. It's actually thicker than Greek yogurt, and you can mix spices into it or just eat it with olive oil on top. So this one's called muhammara. It is based in Syria, and it is always consists of roasted red peppers or piquillo peppers, walnuts, and pomegranate molasses. Those are some of the basic ingredients. So I have my walnuts, and as you can see, they are almost burnt. They are toasted till they're quite dark. Not fully burnt, but very dark. And that's just so you get all of that flavor. You really want that toasty nuttiness. It's not gonna be bitter. There's a lot of ingredients that help counteract that, but it really gives it a richness. This dip is so good because you have that sweetness and that richness as well. So I'm gonna add my peppers into my food processor. So I also have 1 scallion that I've just kind of rough chopped. I'm going to add lemon juice. This is pomegranate molasses. And I actually found this locally in Greenville at the Whole Foods. I'll show you the jar. It's called Just Syrup. And they had the date syrup as well. And they're in the international section. So yeah, you can find it locally, all of these ingredients, which is really nice. I was kind of surprised I found them. So I have my pomegranate molasses and then date syrup. I have a little bit of that red pepper paste, a tablespoon's worth. Give it a little bit of heat. Some Marash, there we go. Marash pepper or Aleppo pepper. Ground cumin. And lastly, about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Okay. So add all of that into your food processor. And we're just going to blend it together. I'm just going to come in and scrape down the sides, make sure everything that kind of flew up gets back in there.
What else could you use the pomegranate molasses for?
It's pretty strong, but you could use it in like a salad dressing as like the sweetener in salad dressing. You could, if you eat yogurt and granola, you could probably put it on a little drizzle on top. You could also put it in a cocktail, like a pomegranate cocktail, or a lemonade. My apologies. It's flying everywhere. All right, that's perfect. So I'm going to grab my bowl. There we go. I like to grab the bottom just so your blade doesn't fall out when you do this. It's so good. It does smell good. You can smell those walnuts. They're so like nutty and earthy because of that. I'm just gonna put it in our bowl. just kind of save this to eat the rest later. And that is muhammara. You can top it with, if you want to grind up some walnuts, or I can put a little pepper or Aleppo on top. Just a little drizzle of olive oil. All right. And this is a dip you would just get, and you can eat it with pita. Honestly, you could put it on sandwiches. You can do so much with it. It's so delicious, and it's such a great dip you can make at home that is really healthy, and it's hearty. So there you go. Okay, so now we're going to check our dolma, see how they're doing. I'll bring you with me. So I'm going to flip over my cutting board. So I have a clean side now. Now we're going to roll out our pita. So I actually made some earlier. So our pita has been resting. It's risen a little bit, but we still want to let it go for probably another 40 minutes. So I actually, once it rises, you punch it down, pull it out, and you can roll it onto a surface. Then you can cut it into 6 pieces with, I use a pastry cutter like this. You can use a knife. And now we're going to, and then I just put them on a piece of parchment paper and let it sit about 10 minutes after you cut them and roll them. That's just for them to kind of take a little breather. So these have been cut and rolled. So I have 4 pieces right here. Pita dough is pretty resilient. I find that you can mess with it a lot and it still forms a pretty great pita. Let me check on my dolma real quick. Does it look nice? Not quite there though. Okay, so I take a floured surface. Remember, you get flour all over me, I'll try not to. And then just make sure you've got flour on your dough. I'm gonna press it down. So this is what I call the pinch and pull. So you pinch your dough and pull it. And you form it into, you're shaping it into your round circle. So you're just giving it shape, and then we're gonna make sure it's not sticking. So if you have a little extra flour, that's great. And then we're just going to roll it with a rolling pin. This is a French rolling pin. Any rolling pin will do. If you don't have one, use a wine bottle. That'll work as well. Sticks, that's okay. Just have a little extra flour on hand. You just want a nice, even circle. I'm just going to lay it back over here while I do another one. You can do 2 at a time. In the oven. I have my oven at 475. That's what the dolma are in. And I put a sheet tray at the bottom, on the bottom rack. And it's been in there since the oven was turned on. And that is what we're going to cook them on. If you have a pizza stone, that's also a great way to cook your pita bread, but just a sheet tray or a cookie sheet on the bottom rack at a 475-degree oven is perfect. They don't take very long. They take about 2 minutes for the first side, and then flip it over for about a minute.
So the recipe and the ingredients that you use, you get 4 pitas out of those ingredients?
You get 6. I tested it yesterday to make sure they worked. I just like to test my recipes ahead of time to make sure, even though I've used them plenty of times before. But yeah, you'll get about 6. So if you want more than that, like 12, you can double it. But this makes 6 pita. Okay, so I'm going to, here, I'll take my computer and show you. So I have, you'll see the dolma are in there, and on the bottom rack, there's a sheet tray. I'm just going to put 2 pita. I'm gonna start with 2 on that rack, on that sheet tray, and we'll check in about 2. Great. They are nice and crispy. You'll notice that they get a little bit darker, but you'll see the outside edges are starting to crisp up, and it just makes them so nice when you're eating them to have that little bit of crunch. So I'm gonna let them rest right here. Roll out our rest of our peanut. So pinch and pull. They also do a dish called a pide, and that is where you take a pita dough, you form it into a boat shape. So kind of like long, and you'll pull the sides in or the corners in at the end, and you'll fill it with meat and cheese, top it with vegetables. It's a really popular dish as well. If you don't have whole wheat flour for this recipe, you can just use all-purpose for all of the amount. I believe it was 35 grams of wheat, or about a 1/4 cup. You can use just all-purpose if you don't have wheat flour. If you have an aversion to it, it is okay to do that as well. All right. I'm gonna check on our pita and see what's happening. Okay, I'm just gonna bring you with me and show you. So you'll see that they're filling with air and they're becoming a pocket. That's exactly what you want. It's been in there about 2 minutes, so I'm gonna flip them over just so the other side gets a little bit of color on it. Just get that warmed and cooked through on both sides. I have a plate here. So I'm just gonna line my dolma up on the plate. Just nice little stacks. And then I'm just going to drizzle a little bit of olive oil over the top. If you want, what we used to do was infuse it with some chili peppers. So just bring it to, put some Aleppo or whatever kind of pepper you want into the oil, bring it to a simmer, let it cool, strain it out, and then it'll be this beautiful red chili oil. This is just olive oil to give it a little sheen. And then I made some yogurt dip. All this is, I use Greek yogurt because it's hard to find labne in local restaurants. You just need a thick yogurt. I just mixed in the fresh parsley, mint, and dill, and a little bit of salt. And you can dip your dolmas in. That's it. These are to the side. We're just waiting on our pita. Our last pita.
Chef Sally,
Yes.
do you grease the pans that the pita is cooked on?
No, you do not want grease. Grease will make it stick. You want it to be very dry. Yeah, so it's just a dry sheet pan. There's flour. You can dust off the excess flour from the pita before you put it in, so you don't have a lot of burnt flour, because that can happen, but you don't want any grease or anything, because that'll just make it stick, and then you'll have to worry about getting that off of your sheet tray. Okay, so here are our dolma. Our hamara and our fresh made pita. I can tear one open for you. You can see it's got layers, so you can actually, because it does split, you can open it and there's a pocket. You can fill it with muhammara. You can do a falafel. It's just very soft and delicious. And that's everything. Those are the 3 meze that we made today. Yeah, it's pretty easy to do at home. Most of the ingredients you can find locally, which is great. I haven't had a problem. Just Whole Foods had the pomegranate molasses and the date syrup, but everything else, yeah, you can find at your local grocery store. It's really nice, something different to make at home. If you have guests over, it's also nice to, just have little plates or little appetizers for them. It's a great way to share. So, any questions?
Can we use the wheat flour we get at Indian grocery stores for making Indian bread? So can you use the wheat flour that you would in Indian bread? For
like naan? Naan is a little bit of a different recipe, but you should be able to use the same flours. But it's a little bit of a different recipe than pita.
How much water is needed to make the pita dough? Is there a range?
It's 1 cup. 1 cup of lukewarm water, 2 tablespoons or teaspoons of active dry yeast, and a half a teaspoon of sugar is how you start. And then you add, I believe the total is about 2 3/4 cups of flour, 1/4 being whole wheat, 2 1/2 being all-purpose.
What was the name of this spice importer?
His name is LeBoyd. Let me type it for you. He's fantastic. He has a great website. And he imports all of his spices from Lebanon. He actually has gone over there and helped in the production. He has great spice blends, really unique. He actually named one after the Chef Kara Tobin that I worked for, and it is phenomenal. It's great on lamb. It has like coffee and paprika and cardamom. But he's a great, his name is Loar. He's great. He did a spice dinner with us one night. He's a very humble man, but he has a great business, and definitely worth checking out if you're looking for some unique spices. And you can follow his Instagram as well, and he shows videos of him traveling over to, I think, Lebanon, doing turmeric and things like that. So, any other questions? And at Plate, we're located in downtown Greenville. No, sorry, Greer. I just moved back to the South. But we do adult classes all the time. So if you ever want to come take a class, we do, I think we're doing an Indian cuisine tomorrow night. We've done fresh pasta making, sushi, macarons, dessert decorating. We come up with new ones all the time. We also do private classes if you want to improve your kitchen skills or learn something specific. So check us out. Our website has all the upcoming classes. There's a calendar, you can look through it, and if there's something you're interested in, it's a really fun date night. We have a lot of fun with couples that come in. You can get yourself a cocktail or a glass of wine. And we can do virtual classes. We do virtual classes for a lot of the ones we do in the kitchen, and we just set it up so you can see what's going on, and we'll send you a ingredient list. So check us out if you want to do any personal cooking classes or come to a class with some friends. It's a lot of fun. Okay. So I'm gonna leave it to Spencer to wrap it up for us.
Upstate International wants to thank you for joining us today. Thanks also to Plate 108 for making this event possible. Please join the World Affairs Council Upstate, Upstate SC Alliance, and the European American Chamber of Commerce for the upcoming events in our supply chain series. For more information or to register for events, please visit our website at upstateinternational.org.
Thank you.
Had to hop off the counter.